What's up, everybody? Sorry about that. So I just had to cut that because I got mush mouth. I didn't rehearse that script, and I'm trying to kind of go off script a little bit there. So El Colecto, if you were, I know you just joined into the chat. Sorry about that. And again, I'm just trying to go off script a little more, make these videos a little different because I know YouTube is different from the podcast. So I'm gonna have some notes here, but again, try to go off script as always. The audio from this will be on our Above and Batman Beyond podcast of the same name as the YouTube channel. Subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Definitely write us a 5-star review on iTunes. Really helps us out. The pod has been back pretty strong. Not gonna lie, as you guys can probably tell from the channel, we haven't been here in the past probably 2 weeks. So thank you so much for your patience. But I have been taking some classes that are really important. It's career-related stuff that kind of can't be on the back burner. So thank you so much for your patience with that. I do promise that the pods will continue as we can. DC Collecticast has been back pretty consistently every other week, every other Wednesday. Shout out to our new editor, Z. He's been editing our audio. So that podcast is back. Vid clips are going to come back with that. And then we also have, what's it called? Our next episode is going to be part 2 with the DCAU Watchtower. So if you're fans of the DCAU Watchtower here on YouTube, our next podcast of Above and Batman Beyond will be with them. El Colecto, hello, made it on time. Hey, sorry I had to cut it out before. Again, I'm trying to just go off script. I didn't rehearse that script and trying to do something a little different than just, I come from the world of podcasting. So I'm like, oh, this will work on YouTube. Maybe not. Maybe people don't want to sit there through a podcast script. So I totally understand that. As always, please subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Get to know that like button if you do like our stuff, and that subscribe button as well. So yeah, man, The Suicide Squad. I like this a lot more than I had expected. There is a huge cast of this, so I'm going to kind of use IMDb as a little bit of a guide here. El Colecto, what did you think of The Suicide Squad, buddy? I like how you said made it on time. Yeah, I rarely do. And then when I did make it on time this time, guess what happened? But yeah, again, trying something different. And I think it's, in the long run, better for the channel to do it this way. Get off that podcasting comfort zone of the script. So yeah, man, going over to IMDb before I get to all my thoughts here. The synopsis here: supervillains Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a collection of nutty cons at Belle Reve Prison join the super secret, super shady Task Force X as they are dropped off at the remote, enemy-infused island of Corto Maltese. As a DC fan, just not even the characters in that, just hearing Belle Reve Prison, Task Force X, Corto Maltese. Like, this movie takes place on Corto Maltese. If you're not familiar, that's from The Dark Knight Returns. That is so damn exciting. The classic comic book of 1986 from Frank Miller, iconic. Just some of the best when it comes to Batman comics. So to set this on Corto Maltese, the fictional DC island, is so cool, so very James Gunn. So that's what it's about. I mean, as you can tell from the title of this is a spoiler review, so 3, 2, 1, spoilers. I'll try to do kind of a spoiler wall type thing, but for the most part, this is a spoiler review. So to go through a bunch of the cast, I'm not going to go through everybody because it's a huge cast. I think there's 18 altogether in the whole Suicide Squad, but with a cast this big, got to kind of go through IMDb. Margot Robbie is Harley Quinn. We have John Cena as Peacemaker. Michael Rooker as Savant. Jai Courtney came back as Captain Boomerang. Sean Gunn as the Weasel. Again, I'm not reading everybody. We have Idris Elba as Bloodsport. Joel Kinnaman as Colonel Rick Flag. Viola Davis came back as Amanda Waller. Joel Kinnaman was a return, too, from 2016. When I say return, of course, 2016 Suicide Squad. Nathan Fillion as TDK, the Detachable Kid. Pete Davidson as Blackguard. And, yeah, I mean, so, again, apparently it was like 18 in the whole squad. We had, what's his name? David Zasmalchin as Polka Dot Man. Again, James Gunn directed. He also wrote it. Going back to kind of my thoughts on it, I really liked it. This was better than I thought. It was pretty much what I expected, but a little better. So, meaning, though, I didn't expect a ton from it. I just think that it was a little better than, and kind of the worries that I had based on the trailer. That first Red Band trailer was, I think, very honest to the movie that we got. For example, all the, John Cena saying, this island we're covered in dicks, the over the top gratuitous, in my opinion, trying too hard to impress teens, let's be real, or whatever, just immature audiences. It's like, that didn't really do it for me, and that was one of my beefs with this movie. El Colecto. It's fine. Love listening, watching your podcast. Thank you. I liked it better than the other Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey. It was enjoyable, and the character development was much better for the new characters. All right, let me read that again. So, liked it better than, yes. So, I liked it better than Squad and Birds of Prey. I agree on that. Enjoyable character development was so much better. Yes. Character development, much better in this. I think, too, they serviced more characters, and it was still better. Like, I'm not saying everyone was, I don't think I cried once in this whole movie, but I felt like, wow, if they had given this maybe a little more depth, they might have gotten some tears out of people. Like, that's James Gunn for you, too. This is the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I was going... My hope for this was my positive hope for this movie before I had seen it was all the great stuff from Guardians, but brought to this basically an R-rated, unleashed Guardians of the Galaxy, because it's still an ensemble movie, superhero. They're misfits. These are supervillains, but they're still like misfits doing a super heroic thing. But at least for me, this is El Colecto again. But at least for me, it wasn't as good as the Guardians of the Galaxy. I say this because there was much expectation. And I also heard somewhere mentioning it was so good. And it was good, but not that much. I totally agree. I didn't, surprisingly, now that you say that, totally agree. I just don't even remember bringing that into this, though I did hear those same things. I did hear like, oh, it's so awesome, and it's this and it's that. I don't think it was so awesome. I don't think, again, I wouldn't even say this is a great film. I think it's a great superhero movie, meaning like, all right, so let me jump into some of my notes here. It's just a lot of fun. Well, I already said good, much better than expected. Not great, but good. Same level as kind of like a violent DCAM, a violent DC animated movie. We have our DC animated movie show here on the YouTube channel. I talk about these things all the time. There's like 43 plus. They don't overthink them. It's one of my favorite things about them. And it's like kind of what I expect from a lot of these. I don't need great. Like, I just need more good ones like this. I honestly, I would prefer like a world of more movies like this and a couple great ones here and there. I don't want them all to be kind of this quality level in terms of good versus great, but I want great ones, of course. Who doesn't want a great movie? But that just seems like an obvious thing. Point is, like, it's a genre thing. You're overthinking it, I think, for the most part. I think especially post Christopher Nolan, it's like, yeah, he was a master filmmaker. Doesn't mean that every movie after that, it needs to be a film school level, production, masterpiece or whatever. Again, I kind of like that not a ton of thought was put behind this. It knows exactly what it wants to be. Of course, production thought. It was very well done. It didn't seem like bad quality or anything. Let's see what El Colecto is saying again. Yeah, I don't think it was as good as Guardians either. I think they could have made the characters a bit more endearing or whatever. But then again, they are super villains. So it's like, how much do you want to care about them? Because once you care about them too much, maybe it wouldn't be as fun. It would kind of take away from. And I also think he probably wanted to just do something so different from David Ayer in 2016, who really gave, like, what's his name, for example? El Diablo really did have like a pretty deep background, and the Ayer cut, release the Ayer cut if you're into that kind of thing. Like, I think we deserve to see that, because it seems like there was a lot more character development, like El Colecto was saying, and like one of my beefs with that movie was not enough character development, at least believable character development. Like, we spent time with characters, but you could tell it was a chop job of Warner Brothers going like, we're just going to give you what we think would go well with the music that we think should go behind it, and just corny stuff that you knew like a real filmmaker didn't really put together. Like, the whole thing just felt like a trailer. this was definitely a James Gunn movie through and through. And it's also what I'm very excited about with this movie is you can tell we're at the dawn of a new era. But literally at DC Films, I guess the Joker was the real first one, but and then even Snyder cut to an extent of total freedom by the filmmaker to take a DC property, do whatever the hell they want with it. That's truly what we got. Um, I'm very excited to be in this era because like James Gunn probably got very little notes on this movie, and that's kind of the deal. It seems at Warner Brothers is that they're taking these big name directors or directors that at least can prove themselves in some way or another, and they're like, yeah, here's the freedom to go nuts with Suicide Squad. Now it's also like El Collecto. James Gunn did a great job, or James Gunn did a great job with Ratcatcher. She really stands out. I thought that was one of the ones in terms of character development. They gave her a great good character development with her. Bloodsport as well. What we saw, we're not quite over the spoiler wall, but what we have seen with Peacemaker, definitely there's some stuff with there that we're going to see. Who else? Harley, they didn't need any. We all know who Harley Quinn is, so I like that they didn't take time with it. Again, this movie knows what it is. Like, I like that they didn't bother going like, I don't think even the word Joker, I don't think was like uttered in this movie, which is pretty cool. Like, I like that there were other DC references with like Bloodsport and Superman, but nothing about the Joker and Harley Quinn because we know who she is, and that was good. El Collecto, King Shark was a fun mascot, enjoyable. That's a good way to put it, mascot. By the way, I haven't read any reviews yet on this, so I just want to say that, and like, because if comments come up and they're, I don't know, slightly influenced by other reviews, or if people start talking about other reviews, I haven't read any reviews, just so everybody knows here. Idris and Cena did a good job too, but I guess you can't expect much from characters that may or may not die at some point. Yeah, that's the other thing too, and it's in the title. We know that the body count, I think for a movie called Suicide Squad, it also lived up to that. That first movie did not. It didn't have the stakes because we were barely losing our characters, it felt like. And this felt like, especially when you did a flash forward, which is so smart. I love when any movie does that, especially an action movie, especially one with suicide in the title. It better be action-packed. We better be getting a bunch of crazy war movie, insane stuff. It just felt like a very, again, violent comic book. To jump straight in with two of our characters getting killed straight off the bat and then going like, a couple weeks earlier. Just smart storytelling. I think that's smart storytelling, even if it's a drama. Jump into the drama of it, and then you can always do flashbacks. I love that kind of thing. I like calling a King Shark a fun mascot. Yeah, Stallone did a really funny job with the voiceover. I mean, I expected that. I think he did great, based on just the trailer. The trailer, I wish I kind of didn't see the trailers. I wish the red band, I kind of wish those trailers weren't as accurate as they were. One of the things I go back and forth with how I feel with the newer crop of, I guess now it's not even new, but the Disney Star Wars movies, pre-Disney Plus and everything, because I love Mandalorian and everything. But one of the things I did love about all those newer Star Wars movies was the marketing. At least it's like, I can see this movie looks dope. I have no idea what it's about. Like, that was genius. And I wish this did a little more of that because, like, speaking of trailers and movies called with Suicide Squad in the title, this movie is like, 2016 was the total other end of it, of like, it sold you a movie that it was not. Warner Brothers cut of it was trash compared to what we got. And that's one of the best trailers of all time. It's one of the best music videos of all time, the Bohemian Rhapsody thing. That just wasn't the movie we got. Whereas this was the movie we got. That first Red Band trailer was exactly the movie we got. I also think, interestingly, the Green Band trailer was as well. The problem was that just the gratuitous cursing. I mean, I am from New Jersey. I love comedy. I'm a student of comedy to an extent. Like, I love cursing, and you can curse well, and it works in movies. I love Tarantino movies, Kevin Smith movies. I love a lot of R-rated. I'm into more like darker comedies. I'm not a big like comedy movie fan per se, but just whatever. I don't mind cursing. It just when it's gratuitous, and also like I'm a DC fan, so I don't mind some cursing. Like drop all the f bombs you want to an extent, but even for like a regular R-rated movie, it felt like this was just trying like, oh, we can say fuck, watch us. That to me felt just immature. It took me out of it. I'm not gonna lie. Like that was one of the big. I said that before. So this had a fun Tarantino vibe to it. I said Tarantino before. He's one of my favorite filmmakers, of course. A lot of people, I'm sure, Gen X's, elder millennials like myself, were into Tarantino. And what I did love about it was not just for the 70s vibe, like I'm about to talk about now, but, Tarantino, a lot of his stuff was like 70s remix and just genre remix. So I'm going to make a gangster movie in this movie. I'm going to make so like Jackie Brown, Pulp Fiction, these are gangster movies. Reservoir Dogs, obviously gangster movies. Then he switches to whatever, a heist movie with, or Reservoir Dogs is like a heist / gangster movie. Then he does a war movie with Inglourious Basterds. You see the point. But he also does like kind of, he was also very edgy for his time because he was like ultra violence, right? So he's like, when someone gets their head blown off in a car in Pulp Fiction is bizarre and weird and philosophical and trippy and whatever all the things that you can say about Pulp Fiction, like when a dude gets his head blown off in a car, it's pretty much what it would be like. There would be brains and blood everywhere. It would be a disgusting mess, right? So like, I like that this kind of had that look. If a bunch of people are getting killed, especially in a story called Suicide Squad, once again, play on the title, I didn't mind the violence to that extent. And it felt Tarantino in that respect, like fun, gratuitous violence. Because that's the thing that Tarantino does well of like, yes, you could call it gratuitous, but like it also knows that it's gratuitous. And this movie was very self-aware in that respect. I think, and of course, Tarantino's dialogue is filthy. Kevin Smith dialogue is filthy, but I don't know. It just, James Gunn isn't pulling it off, unfortunately. Like, sorry, he's just not, at least with this movie. I think if a lot of the same lines, if you just cut down the amount of F-bombs, completely cut out the whole like dicks on the beach joke thing with John Cena and stuff, it just wasn't as funny as it was trying to be. But again, for the most part, like story, way better than I thought it was going to be. I love that Starro I think it was a great villain for this kind of movie that is just a shameless DC movie. Again, that we're in this chapter is very exciting of take the multiverse and go nuts with it. Make your own movie, like make a shameless DC movie, but if you want to make it violent, you can do that too. Like seeing what a Starro would really do to someone's face. Starro is such a ridiculous character. Starro, fun fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Starro was the first villain that introduced the Justice League as we know it in the Silver Age. And then, of course, was used in Batman Beyond. Shout out to our above and Batman Beyond show. But yeah, like Starro can be, and that's what I liked about its use in Beyond was that it was potentially kind of like cheesy, but they did a good job with it. This was like, it knows it's cheesy, wants to be cheesy. They turned Starro into a kaiju. That was just a ton of fun. So yeah, man, I like this movie. I love parts of it. I'm not going to say I totally loved it. 70s vibe. So like real life, like main characters were believably shitty people, especially being supervillains. Like they're supervillains, so obviously they're not going to be good. They're not going to be good to each other, definitely. But also in the 70s, going kind of back to the Tarantino thing, one of the things that Tarantino loved about movies in the 70s, and I just recently listened to like a 3-hour podcast with him and Joe Rogan, and I heard him say this in past interviews and everything too. What's interesting though is just hearing that interview past couple of weeks, I've personally been watching a bunch of 70s movies. So I've just 70s has been like flowing through my head. And then again, interestingly, coinciding with this Tarantino interview. But so like him talking about what Tarantino didn't like about the 80s was that it was so PC, and not to get into politics or anything, but just the main characters in the 70s, it was okay that they weren't perfect. In fact, like they were just shitty people. Um, like I've been watching movies like, Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon. I mean, the main characters in Dog Day Afternoon are bank robbers, and it doesn't glorify anything. It doesn't make them. It's just this is what a day in the life of two bank robbers is, and Serpico is this dude who is just not a great guy in his personal life and destroys relationships, and but he's also kind of heroic because he's refuses to take money as a cop or whatever. Whatever you're playing, it's the characters didn't need to. Whereas in the 80s and what we kind of saw like post 9/11 in the 2000s and stuff, although there was a lot of dark characters and stuff then too, is just this whole, if a character is crappy, then they have to, in the end, come back and make good on it and learn their lesson or whatever. It's like real life, not everyone's going to learn their lesson. And you can still show the lesson like they did in the 70s. You just don't have to whatever. So I like that in this, especially, again, Suicide Squad. These are supervillains. That's the whole point of it. A solid example is Bloodsport talking to his daughter and that girl's a really good actor. She was the younger sister in that show Euphoria. She's Zendaya's little sister in that HBO Max show Euphoria. If you haven't seen Euphoria, first of all, brace yourself. People say, oh man, I really miss being a teenager. You're not. When you see how teenagers apparently how life is, whoa, in high school in that show. But yeah, like that show is intense, and she was a little sister in that. Really good actress. Again, Zendaya's little sister in that show. I don't know her name. She was really good in this, Bloodsport's daughter. And Bloodsport, like, you expect him to have these like heartfelt things, even though it's like, oh, he's a bad guy, but he's got a daughter. Like kind of we saw in 2016 Suicide Squad. But Bloodsport's just cursing at his daughter. He's like, I'm not a good father. I told you not to visit me here. Like, that's kind of more realistic to maybe more, it's cool to get, maybe not more people would act like that toward their daughter. I'm just saying it's cool to finally get more depictions of shitty people as main characters. El Colecto, the deaths were kind of unexpected for me. I thought / hoped a couple of those guys were going to have a larger part because there were many actors I love. Yeah, it was funny. So let's go through the kill count. And then after that, we'll be out of here. I want to make this like a solid half hour. And so let's do it. Spoiler wall. 3, 2, 1. I'm sure America, I'm not a Pete Davidson hater, but like seeing him getting taken out, I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed that. It was a shame seeing TDK because that's Nathan Fillion get knocked out so quick. I was a huge Firefly fan. Apparently, he's a good friend of James Gunn. Fun fact, TDK, the detachable kid, that is partly a made-up character, partly based. It is based on a DC character, but his name was I forget what it is, but it's like not detachable kid. It's a super drawn out name that it does not flow. I believe from 1989, 1988. And so just like, yeah, but he, I think, had the same powers of being able to telepathically to take off his appendages and then telepathically control them. So yeah, that was surprising to see TDK getting taken out. I did not expect that. Pete Davidson just gets his head blown right the hell off. I love the thing with Weasel, him drowning and then showing up at the end. That's just a really fun thing to do, especially for like, you wouldn't believe that if it was a human, but it made it believable because that was just some ridiculous, almost to us, supernatural character. Like, we don't know what the drowning, but it was just so good. Like, as you said, unexpected deaths. No one thought to find out if the weasel, like what would happen when the weasel hit the water. So that was really funny. I like that. It's, again, Tarantino-esque. It's like he even says in his own films and just stories in general, stories should unfold. They shouldn't just, I talk about this a lot because I saw even an older interview with him recently. And it's just something I noticed in a lot of good stories. Like, I'm like, wow, I really like that. Oh, it did the Tarantino thing. Stories should unfold, not I can see what's coming. You don't know what the hell is going to happen in this movie. You really don't. And again, with this, what's fun about this versus 2016 is that 2016, they were still trying to play it safe, probably to an extent. They definitely were. You know, that was a studio chop job. They had a lot of different, you know, gatekeepers to serve, and they're trying to do all this stuff to appease different audiences, whatever. Whereas this was just a very, like, everyone's going to die that I want to die. I'm sure you weren't allowed to kill, like, Harley Quinn and stuff like that, but El Colecto, I love Pete Davidson. I was excited to see him in the movie. Yeah, I think I would have liked to see him a little more out of him. So many people. Like, I wish I had the kill count in front of me. You know, live action stuff isn't our like total forte here, so I don't have all my details in front of me. Otherwise, I'd have detailed notes here. I did only see the movie once, so I should probably already said that. I saw it in theaters. I did not watch it on HBO Max yet. I know a lot of people probably just watched it on HBO Max. I happen to be a Stubbs member at AMC, so that could be why maybe I saw it in theaters. But I highly recommend seeing it in theaters. First of all, I highly recommend the movie. You know, now that we're over the spoiler wall and everything like that, I do recommend it. I'm not gonna say I love it. I definitely recommend the movie. I also recommend seeing it in theaters. Like, if you're looking for a movie to see in theaters, be ready for the gore. Got to be ready for that. If you're not into that kind of thing, definitely don't see this. It's not your typical superhero movie at all, so definitely don't expect that. Bring my chair up a little bit here. You know, but it's good. I liked it. What else do we have here? Yeah, I enjoyed the infighting. Oh, now that we're over the spoiler wall, what's some other stuff I can remember from the people who got killed in the end and stuff? The John Cena thing, like, I did enjoy the infighting. It wasn't contrived like a lot of comic book movies, like when it's John Cena v. What's his name? Colonel Rick Flag. When Rick Flag like steals the information, he's like, "Look, kids are getting experimented on for this Starro thing. Like, this has to get out." Their whole thing is, especially with the Suicide Squad, Task Force X, it's as secret as it gets. They don't exist as far as the government's concerned. So, you know, Waller can't let that out. That's the mission. And Peacemaker, that was a really cool, fascinating kind of turn in the movies. Like, my whole thing is, like, I'm the peacemaker. I forget what his exact line was, but, like, in order to maintain peace or to keep the peace, that's the cost or whatever. And I got to say, like, I was impressed with Cena's delivery there. If I haven't already said, Margot Robbie did a fantastic job. I'm not a huge, like, that version of Harley. I think that this is the best accent work she's done. I guess back to Cena real quick, though. He impressed me. I'm not, all right. I don't understand the big hype with The Rock. I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson, very talented. He wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning, lifts a ton of weights. He was an amazing wrestler, crushed that. I understand he deserves to be, sure, in all these big movies. I'm not saying like he doesn't deserve what he's got and hasn't worked hard for it and all that. You know, making the transition to a big Hollywood star from WWF makes sense, like the WWE, whatever. Those guys are used to working with the camera, obviously working out all the time. It's a lot goes into the wrestling, right? So like being a hype man, working with a mic, working with the crowd, impressing people, charisma, he's good looking. I get it. Cena, though, to me, was always like right there with The Rock. I never understood why Cena didn't kind of have the same career, given that, like, wrestler, I think he's equally as charismatic. I think he's funnier. I think he's a better actor. This was like, I wasn't impressed with the Cena stuff, again, with that whole like dicks on the beat, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it wasn't his fault. That's the script. I think his delivery was good enough, but it was when I think he delivers, especially like the James Gunn dialogue is not easy. So he was funny within this, like a witty, for him to be witty funny and be like, yes, douchey Captain America and all that stuff, but then have that turn at the end of going like, no, this won't get out. Fights Rick Flag, kills Rick Flag. Then has that moment with Ratcatcher at the end. And then, of course, Bloodsport have their face off. Bloodsport and him have their face off. I don't know. I was really impressed with Cena with that. And I also love, before we get back to Harley, I like the post-credits thing where it's like we're going to get more Peacemaker. Like, he lived through that neck shot. Yet another thing I didn't see coming. Yes, it's kind of surprising that Bloodsport didn't go for the headshot after that, but it's like he did just shoot the guy in his neck and the whole building tumbled. Like, that wasn't one of those things where it's like, come on, just shoot him in the head. Like, anytime people get shot in the chest in a movie like this, you're like, come on, finish the job. This doesn't count. But that was a cool, unexpected thing that he survived. And obviously for a sequel, he's our potential big bet. El Colecto, I also saw it in the theater. I had funny moments. I do recommend the movie. It is worth watching. Definitely is. Worth the movie ticket, and I know that means a lot more these days. So I am factoring that in. I know you're probably going, like, you're a Stubbs member. You go to the movies all the time. You're a huge nerd for all this. I'm factoring in post-COVID. I'm factoring in it's a different movie audience. I'm factoring in, I should say theatrical audience these days, getting people to go to the movies. I'm factoring in that it's on HBO Max. Still go see it. It's worth the movie ticket. It really is. Like Black Widow, I was annoyed that was not on Disney Plus. I really was, because I'm like, and I wasn't paying $30 for it. I'm already a Stubbs member, and I wanted to see it. Like, why would I not see the new Marvel movie in theaters? And that just annoyed me. Whereas this was good. I didn't think Black Widow was a bad movie. That's one that I could have been like, yeah, Disney Plus. I would have settled for Disney Plus on that. So again, that's cool that it's set up for a sequel. I'm not sure I need a sequel, but I wouldn't mind it. Before we close out, I did love. I'm trying to go through because it's such a big roster. What did I forget? Oh, Polka Dot Man, DeSmolchin. I mean, I expected him to do a really good job, but for them to make me care about Polka Dot Man, like that little scene, it's just 5 minutes. And this is where James Gunn is good. Again, El Collector was saying with the character development, where a lot of the DC animated movies do this too. A lot of these movies are ensemble movies. They're either Suicide Squad movies like this. They're Justice League movies. They're Team Up, Batman, Superman, whatever it is. There's a ton of characters because, like comic books, they have to service these characters. It's kind of the job of seeing a comic book property. It's what annoys me about a lot of comic book movies that we don't get. It's what I'm excited for The Batman, is that it's like shamelessly just throwing in the robes. I liked it in this so back to like with character development, this is what annoys me of a lot of movies going like, oh, there's no time to develop all these characters. Yes, there is. Case in point, they have their, like any movie with like a band of people or an ensemble of fighters in any war movie, whatever it is, even in Westerns, they're all camping out and sleeping overnight. And it's moments to get, it's an opportunity to give characters intimate moments between each other, right? So it's like, it's at night, they're vulnerable, and you see the thing with that David Smolchin, the Polka Dot Man, has to like expel these polka dots and basically take a big polka dot shit of all these, bioluminescent polka dots. And it's just a very quick thing of, I have to, what's your deal? What are those things? And he's like, I got to get rid of the polka dots twice a day. And then they go into the thing with his mom. Just enough. Like, I just thought that was really good. And then they tie it in with making it funny and even giving us what's cool about CG now. And I thought the CG in this was good. Like, people say movies now are big CG fests. I thought that, and they are. I thought that Black Widow was a good example of why they're right. But this was a good example of like where you can do it right. You give us a giant Starro and it looks good. This is the guy who made Guardians, and the CG and that looked great, I thought. So like it was good, like CG wise, and it was fun seeing, the Starro turn into his mom and all the crazy comic book level stuff that you can do now. And I thought he was a good example of that. Back to Harley again. Margot Robbie did a great job. Fun. I mean, I like the whole thing with the Spanish dictator. I thought that was a perfect thing of like putting her in a position that's very similar to where she had been with Joker, of a huge evil leader, dictator of sorts. Instead of Gotham, he's the dictator of Cordo Maltese. And, she does use him for sex and then just decides to kill him right afterwards because she's like, I will not fall into this trap again. That was great. That whole bit with her was good. It was fun to see her see her away from the rest of the squad. I think I maybe would have liked some more moments with her, with them. as working with the ensemble is what I'm trying to say. I would have liked to see her more in the Injustice suit that we saw, that leather jumpsuit in the beginning. Absolutely perfect. That biker looking straight out of the Injustice and Injustice 2. Goggles, rocket launcher. That's my Harley all the way. Like, I absolutely love it. I mean, of course, the animated series Harley too. But if you're going to do like a modern Harley, I thought she was absolutely perfect. I would have loved that Harley, especially if you're doing the whole like that James Gunn wanted this to be a 70s war movie, the Tarantino side of things. The whole thing with her in a dress, yeah, that's cool, but I really would have liked to see, again, that Injustice suit. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Obviously, I could try to sit here for a while and think of more stuff, but with 18 people in the squad and everything else, and we're not, live action is not our thing per se here, but I did enjoy it. I recommend it. It's really fun. It's a good movie, decent story. Not great, but good. And parts were definitely great. So, yeah, that's it, man. Oh, yeah. And again, tried too hard with the gratuitous cursing. When I say recommend, be ready for that. If you feel like that's going to annoy people that you're going with to that movie, be ready for that. It's not your typical superhero movie. But again, it gets a pass. If you can get over the cursing, if that doesn't bother you and the violence is good, it gets a pass. And it's fun. So yeah, man, that is my review for The Suicide Squad. If you're new here at the channel, again, please consider subscribing on YouTube. Click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. For the podcast listeners, please subscribe to the pod. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Please follow us on Instagram. We are at BatmanBeyondMedia. Speaking of IG, we have a giveaway. That is right. We have a giveaway. Follow us at BatmanBeyondMedia once again for the details on how you can win this very Shriek. This is the Target exclusive Shriek McFarlane Batman Beyond action figure. And yeah, we're going to have a giveaway coming up. So stay tuned again at Batman Beyond Media for the details on how to enter. Again, The Suicide Squad is now in theaters and on HBO Max. Definitely recommend it. Subscribe to our DC Collecticast podcast. Please rate and review that show as well. If you haven't seen video clips from that show, or if you're not familiar with DC Collecticast, there's vid clips here in the channel on our Above and Batman Beyond YouTube channel. There's also we're also back as a bi-weekly podcast. So consistent episodes. We have our 4th consistent episode coming up in the past 2 months. At House of Geekery is our new co-host on that show. It's a ton of fun. It's at House of Geekery and I. Follow him on Instagram. He's the vice president of the Comic Collectors Guild, so he really knows his action figures. We have a ton of fun. We talked about the Suicide Squad figures. We just did our past 2 episodes. We're on San Diego Comic-Con stuff. But again, point is, please rate and review that show if you haven't done that. If you listen to that show, we're really trying to build that podcast, the audio side of things on that show. So please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, and that really helps out the audio. All right. So this has been Live Action Live. I have been Benjamin David, telling you to go above and Batman Beyond. And YouTube, let us know if you like this a little better of me not jumping in with the script. I'm sure there was a lot more uhs and this and that, but I'm interested to also rewatch it and see, is this a little maybe better, or I could go back to the podcast script. We'll see. Maybe a little mix of the both. El Colecto, gracias. Por siempre. Thank you as always for joining in, man. All right. I'll see you guys later.